Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Dee-Brief with Dr. D. Real talk, real strategy, real leadership, one insight at a time. I'm your host, Dr. D, and this is your space for bold conversations, soul deep reflections, and truth that transforms. Whether you're an executive, an entrepreneur, or an everyday change agent, this podcast is for you, navigating both public success and that private struggle. Each episode, we take a deep dive into emotional wellness, grief recovery, faith, leadership, and the tools you need to rise with clarity and with purpose. This isn't just strategy, it's healing. It's a calling. This is the Dee-Brief with Dr. D. Let's get into it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Debrief with Dr. D. I am your host, Dr. D, and I am excited for this podcast today because we are talking with someone that I have known, I want to say, definitely over 2 decades because my youngest son will be 24 and he was 4 when he started working with this person. So it's definitely going on 2 decades or a little bit longer. And he is such an amazing person, has sold into the lives of so many youth in our community, none other than my forever sensei, Sensei Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Dr. D, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. I'm always excited to support you in whatever you're doing. I think family is something we became a long time ago.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we'll talk a lot about that. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. So for those who don't know you and they want to know who you are, what you do, and how you support people, because that's what our podcast is about, who is Sensei Jeff?
Sensei Jeff Hunt. Uh, Sensei Jeff Hunt is a normal guy that fell into a passion called karate, became a competitor, very successful competitor, got to a point where he was very active in law enforcement and hit a roadblock mentally in terms of what more he could do with purpose. Uh, Gave me the opportunity to have a vision of change that initially started with children.
Mhm.
And as I initially started with the mindset of how can I pour into children other than chasing children and getting children in unfortunate circumstances, how could I contribute? What can I do? What saved me? And that was the beginning of a mindset of sharing and teaching karate as my hook and distraction into having something appealing to young people, but teaching always with a purpose.
Yes, yes. That's great because you spoke a lot about my first question and what drew you in your journey in martial arts and drew you to the discipline of Shotokan karate in particular. So I'm going to tag on to that and ask you, what are some of the core philosophies from martial arts that have shaped you as a man, as a leader, as a person? And then how do you instill that into the children that you share karate with? Deep question, right?
It is a very deep question because the philosophies of Shotokan karate they go to a certain extent with me. I teach karate from a Christian perspective. I pray before class, I pray after class. The core values of my class are by God's grace, because I believe everything that I get is from the grace of God. Seek perfection of character, which any person, anything that you do, you got to ask yourself every day, how can I be better? That's seeking perfection of character. Being sincere and honest is stuff you teach children not to lie. But when you deal with adults with karate and kickboxing, one of the big liars that adults have is lying to themselves. So to really be honest with yourself looking in the mirror and understanding your challenges and how to deal with them is huge. Showing a strong spirit means every day we get life, we have to approach things with passion. We have to have a great attitude towards anything that comes to us. Practicing courtesy is the next part of the mantra of character development. It's trying to do your best with people, trying to always show people love, but not being harmed by a person that doesn't. And the last one is control my temper. And when you think of temper, you think about kids with temper tantrums and adults with tempers, but it's just actually communicating with yourself, putting roadblocks in your space and in your mind when you're dealing with challenging situations to not initially react negatively or aggressively or violently to things that might be coming to you that might mean you harm, might mean you danger. I didn't get into karate, uh, Dr. D, for discipline. It's not why I got into karate. I was a 15-year-old that I borrowed a book from the library on how to kick. I started teaching myself how to kick because I wanted to eventually learn karate. I started off with an art called Kempo Kung Fu. It was good. I was doing well. I went away to brown belt. But right next door, there was another class of Shotokan. And Shotokan was straight to the point. And when I was younger, I wasn't a bad kid. I was a street kid. I liked being outside. I found myself constantly protecting my older brother and my siblings. So try not to judge me. The reason why I took karate, honestly, was to be able to deal with more than one person and look good while I did it. That was my initial reason for taking karate. I didn't, I was never afraid to fight. It was just, I wanted to look good if 4 or 5 people came up on me when I did it, like I knew what I was doing. So that was my mindset for a long time. And then fast forward, after competing, getting accolades and being known for fighting and competing, you know, I started teaching karate in the Adventist church. It was almost unheard of. It was unheard of to teach karate in a church, much less an Adventist church. I had gotten so much kickback from teaching in the church that one day I called the pastor's wife because she was inquiring, and the pastor said, I don't agree with what you're doing." And I said, "Well, if somebody comes inside your house to harm your wife or your child, what you gonna do?" And he said, "Nothing, because whatever their purpose was, that was God's purpose." And I said, "Well, Pastor, with all due respect, the level of faith that you're on, I might never get there. Because if you come inside my house to harm my wife or my child, I'm going to do everything I can by the grace of God to defend them and defend my family." As I started at the church, it started to grow. And when you're in certain environments, a lot of people talk, a lot of things happen, different forms of politics transpire. And I said it was time to go. So I went on Merrick Boulevard, right down the block, and I saw this location, and I had this vision that I could actually teach kids and adults karate and encourage them and enrich their lives while communicating with them. And I went to this spot in Merrick. It used to be a hardware store. They chopped up and made it like the strip on 227th Street. I opened up the door, and all I saw was a wire and a bulb. And I sat down for a minute, and I said, "I can do this." And that caused a whole problem with different people because karate, American Boulevard, how you gonna pay the rent? How you gonna do this? How you gonna do that? I second mortgaged my house. I second my mortgage my house. Everything you see in the dojo. I had 7 pastors walk in my dojo and pray for everybody who walked through my doors, that God would touch them one way or another. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, but I don't push anybody in any direction. all I do is I plant the seeds with what I do to encourage them to seek a relationship with God. That's what I do. It's been almost 30 years.
Wow.
It's been almost 30 years that I've been teaching karate, and it's been a blessing. You know, I'm getting a little emotional now because there's so many lives that and journeys that I had an opportunity to be a part of. Some went to high heights, some went to low lows. Some are not here no more, but I did my best to touch them. And you've been in my environment. God has always blessed me with the Holy Spirit because I go from one extreme to another because my thing is connection. I got to connect with that person. And when I connect with that person, whether it's karate, boxing, kickbox, whatever it is, I'm connected. And I think more more than anything, the the blessing that God has given me. Yes, I've been blessed with karate. Yes, I've been blessed with boxing, but the real blessing was God implanting something in me with the ability to connect. We connected. We
Okay.
we 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 connected. I think the first time you walked on the sidewalk and you were like, "Can he come?" Nah, he too little. He like 3. Nah, I can't do it. But
Right.
it was a warm exchange that got you to bring him back, and you came back, and you know, from the first time you walked in my dojo, I never held my tongue. I was
No.
always I was always real, and we connected as a person that I wanted to do whatever I could do to encourage your sons. And started off with Jared, and Jared started growing. Kevin had Kevin wanted nothing to do with karate until
Mm.
he saw Jared developing, and then he formed the interest, and um it was a blessing. I see your young men now, and they've been different places, and they've grown in so many ways, and I'm proud of them. But it's a great feeling to know that a piece of me moves with them because of something you saw in me, something your husband saw in me, and something
Mhm.
that you allowed me to be a part of, especially in those character developmental years.
Yeah.
I hope
No,
I
that's
much.
no, you did not. You answered so many questions. And I'm glad you talked about that because, as I said in the beginning, Jared, my baby, will be 24. And he started with you when he was 4. He was 3 when we walked by. You were like, no, come back. So we came back a year later, and you took him at 4, and little Kevin is going to be 29. And you were, teaching him when he was in high school, junior high school, I think even. And now he's a detective at NYPD. Yeah, he has a family. He's doing amazing. Jared's doing amazing. So they both are out of the house. I'm a grandmother, so I thank you for sewing into their lives. And you're right, we're family. You just saw them last week at Big Kevin's retirement party. You're friends with my husband. I'm friends with Dr. Kim Hunt. So we are family. And I think that's what you have instilled in the people whose lives you touch. I remember when Kim was pregnant with Matthew. Um, so Matthew is how old now?
He's 17 years old now.
Yes, yes. So, not just me, but I could say the same for most of the people that I've seen come in and out of the dojo. Leslin was there last week. You used to teach her children. So, my next question to you is, how do you refuel? Because you pour into so many people, and we know as Christians, as leaders, as caregivers, as people who serve the community, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So, for those who are watching and who may be like you, community servants, life servants, how do you refuel? What would you tell someone who needs that advice to do that?
You know, when you do what I do, like you do what you do, people only see the strength in you. They never imagine a weakness. They never imagine you tired. They never imagine the different sacrifices that you have to do in order to be who you are for them. And refueling, sometimes it's an escape, getting on a plane and disappearing on an island and just being, or sometimes it's driving out to the beach and just sitting at the water and just looking into the water. Uh, Sometimes it's going to the gym. But it's what happens is my teaching style has always been a high energy teaching style. And my balance now is very strategic because I can be exhausted and tired. But the minute I walk inside that environment, people are walking inside the environment to see me be who I'm supposed to be for them when I walk inside the door. Um, it's not easy. It's not easy, and you know it's a lot of sacrifice. You know, my I was fortunate to meet my wife in a position where I was already being myself. And my wife wasn't the type of wife to say, you got to do this, you got to do that, you can't do this, you can, because it would have never worked.
Right.
So she came in and saw how I was, and she was able to accept it and balance it. And I'm constantly aware of my balance. I'm aware of my balance with myself. I'm aware of my balance with my wife. I'm in balance with my daughter, my son Joshua, my son. It's a constant clock that I can't always clump them together. I got to make sure that I'm connected to every single one of them at every different phase. And girls aren't easy. My
Right.
biggest challenge was sitting for a long time because I remember, I was me and Sydney asked me for something that she asked Kim for. And Kim said, ask your father. And Sydney came to me and asked, I said, no, you can't do it. And she said, what do you mean? Mommy said I could do it. I said, well, mommy got to check with me first. And she says, nah. You said mommy's in charge. I said, mommy is in charge, but mommy gotta bring stuff to me. And when I told her she couldn't do it, it was World War 5,000. It was nuts. It was nuts. And she said something to me. She said it to me, and it floored me. She said to me, I said, I've always been here. I've always been in charge. She said, no, you haven't. There were times you were here, but you wasn't here. He said, especially when you became a commissioner, you had your car in front, you had your radio, you had your BlackBerry, every place you went, you on the screen, people calling you. You were here, but you were somewhere else. That seeded me into it. I could have argued with it, but I couldn't because she expressed to me how she felt. And when she said that to me, I thought I was good until she said that to me. And when she said that to me, that changed my whole perspective on how I dealt with her and everybody else. My whole perspective. And thank God she said it because it gave me a chance to reset my course with her. I speak to Sydney every day.
Yeah.
Sydney's in Ireland right now. We get ready to go see in a couple of weeks. We'll be traveling. And family, Darlene, family, getting away, just relaxing is one step. But in my mind, I'm always looking for, let me back up. And I promised myself I wouldn't get involved in certain things, but something fell on my lap, and it was too good. And then I found myself like I do very well when I'm in charge. I don't do well when anybody have to answer to people. I usually tell people I answer to my wife, but let me say it properly. The two people that I answer to is God and my wife. I don't do good. I just don't. Just give me my assignment. So I got an assignment where I could make a little bit of money, I could make a lot of money, do whatever I want. And then I started getting myself caught out there. And one day I told Kim, I said, money's good, but I'm starting to feel like I'm working.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's not what I want. That's not what I want. So I backed up. We had a good month. I'm chilling right now. I'm back in my rhythm, and I'm very guarded and protecting my rhythm because I'm happy. I'm still happy teaching. I'm,
Right.
I'm still happy, but refueling is constant in my head. Yesterday I went to the dojo and I told Kim, check up on me because Kim always says, Jeff, take it easy. So I'm by
Mhm.
myself. So I'm doing bad work in the dojo by myself. So I get really, really spirited. I'm start hitting, I'm start kicking. I put a hole in the wall downstairs in the basement,
What?
kicking the bag to hit the wall. And now I gotta get it. I gotta get it fixed. But then might as well get the whole basement painted. So it's like if somebody saw it and I said, before y'all start asking, I hit it. But being there by myself, turning on the music, hitting, that's one of my forms of release. In my mind, I'm saying to myself, you yeah, like you grown now. What in order for me to give it to somebody, I still gotta feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you took us to the dojo. I want to touch on the dojo and then I want to get to how kickboxing was birthed. So the dojo is for me it's a sacred place. It's a place of calm. It used to be my place of peace, my place of relaxation. After work, 6 o'clock, 6:30, come to the dojo. So talk to us about the dojo. What are some of the principles? Well, why is a karate school called a dojo? And what are some of the principles that every person should know about a dojo? Thinking about it as more than just a school. The place that it is to me, like what is it?
I'm very protective on being unique. And when somebody calls me and says, I visited one of your competitions, my initial response is very offended. What competition? I don't got no competition. I'm very protective when somebody tries to say one school is just like everything else because first of all, the Spirit of God dwells in my dojo. Have I always been perfect? No. But the Spirit of God dwells in my dojo. And it's a special place because I'm very protective on who walks in my dojo.
Mhm.
I've had some people that walked in, they had to pray them out. Some of them I had to throw out. Um, it's funny because even yesterday when Pastor Greg walked in, I said, "You see that chair right there? That was Darlene's chair." He said, "What?" That was Darlene's chair right there. I said, I watched Darlene as a great mother raise her children, be a great wife, one degree, another degree, another degree, a PhD, a commissionership. How many people? How many people get to see that? How many people get to see people really grow? And you gave me something. It is only as we continually develop others that we permanently succeed. That poster is on my wall. You gave that Harvey Firestone. You gave that to me, and I blew it up because that's the purpose. The purpose is developing others, and in my dojo, we develop others. I saw a nurse a couple of years ago. Her son went to purple belt. This kid was brilliant. He went to a school in Manhattan that was almost a college tuition, and he got a scholarship for it. So I said, what happened? I said, whatever happened to him? He said, well, my son, he's getting married. I said, he is? He said, yeah, how old is he? He's 31. I said, well, what did he do after high school? Because he got so involved in the school, I had to stop training him. You know what she said to me? She said, he went to Yale. I said, what? She said, he went to Yale. I said, I ain't never been to Yale, but a piece of me walked through those halls of Yale.
That's right.
The journeys that I've been blessed to be a part of, every single time is what refueled me to keep going. Is when those times when COVID came and everybody was closing, it was, well, am I doing this for money? Am I doing it for passion? No, I'm doing it for passion. And I was in the parks. I was in the sidewalks. I was teaching to get through. Our people were closing. I know 15 or so schools that just closed. And when one person called me one day, he was distraught. And I said, why do you do what you do? Is it for money? He says, no. Then keep doing what you're doing, and this will pass. And he said, how do you stay so calm? I said, I ain't got no choice.
Right.
I don't have no choice. If you're driven by something you know God has driven you to do, like you just keep going forward. So the things that happen in the dojo, the lives, the journeys, success stories.
It's a sacred place, and you feel like you can always come back, and it's the same. It's a sacred place. It's like family. So with that, you saw something really special that I don't think most people see. There's karate, there's Shotokan karate, but then there are some people who really just want to focus on their health and their weight and self-defense and building their character and building their confidence. And you were able to see that and really aligned kickboxing in a way that it's not just kickboxing, it's boxing, it's confidence building, it's self-defense, it's weight loss. I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you, how was that birthed?
That was birthed from me working with a professional boxer. I worked with a professional boxer about 10 years, and he was so good. And when you walk into a regular boxing gym and you throwing hands, they anybody can hold mitts, but the minute you pick your leg up, if a person not used to it, they go shell shocked. So there was a guy named Renee, and he was at the K2 on Queens Boulevard. I used to go there at lunchtime and do 12 rounds, 3-minute rounds, 30-second rest. So I'd go there and work with him. And he'd teach me something like a jab, cross, and a hook. And I was like, okay, I got it. I'm going to throw a spinning hook kick. He said, what? Yeah, I'm going to throw a spinning hook kick. I said, now I want you to catch it. And I did it slow. And after I did it slow, I said, now I'm coming. If you don't block it, you're gonna get hurt. And he was very, very good. And while I was doing it, it was like when you talk about discipline and structure, most adults don't want to have nothing to do with that. Now it's getting harder even with children because of so many different things that the government is doing to augment the minds of the parents and the people. So it was like, okay, parents want to move, parents want to work, parents want to learn how to defend themselves. Once I got the music on and we moving and we exercising, we having fun, but I'm teaching you stuff. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for different points. Now I'm giving you my secret. You ready?
I'm ready.
I'm looking for different points in the workout where your confidence and your self-esteem is real, real high. And that's when I'm dropping. That's when I'm dropping a nugget. I did it when I worked with you in karate. I did it when I worked with you in boxing. And when you're feeling that great about what you're doing, and somebody's reminding you subconsciously and clearly of, listen, When you put your mind to doing, look how good you are.
Yeah.
Take it outside and apply it in your life. That's what I did with
Absolutely.
karate. That's what I did with boxing. That's what I do. That's what I do with adults. Um, I look for different points to bring up their confidence and they feel good about themselves. And then I remind them of, listen, every one of us go up and down with weight. Every single one of us go through ups and downs in terms of happiness. But if you can stay the course and learn different things and control different things from affecting you, you can do it when you walk outside the door. That's what I did with karate. I
Yeah.
didn't just teach kick people how to kick and punch. I did my best to the grace of God to empower them. And they don't forget. I just posted something the other day with a girl that hasn't been on my floor for 5 years. She's a parent, just like you. And I said, come on the floor. I posted it. She's almost like 15,000 views. And I said, she ain't been on my floor for 5 years. But the different things you never forget.
Yeah.
Boxing, kicking, that's a little gift for your body. But mentally, it's a distraction. Because once I get you feeling good about what you're doing, by the way, you know you special. By the way, you know you powerful. You got
Mhm.
greatness in front of you. Look how you just did this. You put your mind, look what you did. Do something else with it.
Right. And that means a lot as you're saying that to people because you don't know the type of life someone has. That could be the only positive thing that someone hears. And I remember when we were having the Biggest Loser competition, it was coming into the dojo and getting ready for kickboxing, but there was inspiration, there was conversation to help people realize that it was a combination. It wasn't just working out. It wasn't only a mindset shift. It was also something they had to do physically with their nutrition. So you taught holistically wellness for individuals.
You know, I can't believe you remembered that. That was that was such a that was such a special time for a lot of people. And one of the folks that really took a leadership position, she passed away um, years after of breast cancer, lived right around the corner. And special special times. And as I think of her, I think of another girl that one day she walked by, and she had this. She used to be one of my kickboxers, Marla. She had this thing, like this swollen thing right here, and I said, "What happened?"
Mhm.
And she said, "Yeah, I had cancer, and they had to cut it out." And she said to me, "I don't know if I could join the class again, but can I just come inside for a minute? Can I just hit
Yeah.
the pad with you?" I said, "Come on, girl, let's go. Let's do what we used to do." And she was empowered. She was empowered with me. And every now and then she would pass by, and when they started doing the chemo, it changed a little bit of how she looked, and she was struggling, but she just would pass by just to see me. And after a while, she wasn't passing by, and I was like, I haven't seen in a while. And one day, her daughter walked in crying. I already knew what it was, and I went to her funeral, and she worked at, I think it was Jamaica Hospital, and it was that church on Hollis Avenue. That church was packed, standing room only, and
Yeah.
the gift that I had was she walked in my dojo. I had I had a part of her. She she shared something. There was something special that she got out of coming inside of the dojo. And I've never got to the point where I said, I gotta quit, I gotta close, I gotta do this. I've never gotten to that point. They've been trying times. But every time things get challenging, I move forward, and I remind myself, this is bigger than me.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it ties into I want to get to two more things. I want to end with your police career.
Wow.
But what you're talking about now is how you impact people's lives. And as part of your journey as a karate instructor, working at the dojo, owning the dojo, helping with weight loss and mindset, you've become a life coach. And that's really all that you've been doing in every aspect of what you've been talking about. You've been coaching people throughout their life. So, what led you to kind of take ownership of that piece of you as a life coach, become certified, and start doing that officially? Because that's what you've been doing.
You know what? I came to realization when I was in the police department. Any type of communication, presentation, course that was available, I always asked for it. I always
Mhm.
asked for it. And I was a youth officer dealing with young people for almost 6 years. I was a domestic violence officer dealing 7 years dealing with grown people. And it was
Yeah.
always communication. And both of my degrees are in marketing because I didn't know I didn't know what I wanted to do. But once I heard this professor say, everything in life you got to sell, no matter what you do, I would sell you dropping that knife. I would sell you putting your hands behind your back. I could sell. I remember as a young cop, a girl OD'd on heroin, and we called 911, and 911 came, and they resuscitated this girl,
Um,
and and she didn't want to go to the hospital. I was a rookie. I got on my knees. I started getting teary eyed. I said, "Girl, if you relapse again, you're gonna die. You're gonna die because I can't save you. You're gonna die." And just me taking this time to communicate with, she broke down and cried. You don't know how they treat you in the hospital when they know you do heroin. You don't know the way they look at you, the way they talk to you, the way they do it. I said, girl, you gotta go. I'm sorry, you gotta go. That it's always been my challenge. If I meet somebody to connect with them, I gotta try to connect. I
yeah.
gotta try to connect. I gotta try to connect. And when COVID came, I give myself levels of executive development, right? So I take
Mhm.
that can help me to help other people. And I took it with Eric Thomas and ET. And the reason why I took it to ET was, of course, I saw the videos and I was drawn by it. But a lot of people don't know me and Eric, we have a special bond. We started speaking years ago, different places. I can show you a picture and a poster when we were both younger speaking in the summer here, speaking in Chicago.
Mhm.
I started really getting to speaking because when I was a young cop, I put together a presentation called Youth in the Law, Understanding the Law Enforcement Community. And I put
Mhm.
all the different scenarios because kids love scenarios. So the word took off that, this is what you do. You do this, you're going to get this. You do this, you're going to, this is what you're supposed to do. Because sometimes all the stuff that happens, you in handcuffs because of the misunderstanding. So I'm going to give you the understanding. And unfortunately, I was in Chicago. Kim was pregnant and she miscarried. And she called me crying. And I'm in Chicago. Right? And I'm thinking about, I'm gonna go all over the world and do this because I was like, I can go and speak and get 10 grand. I can go in, yeah, they just gotta speak. So I was like, yo. But when that happened, it humbled me.
Mhm.
It made me say, if I do something, I'm not going far anymore. It slowed me down for a long time because I was passionate about changing mindsets. And when when COVID came and everybody was dealing with stuff, I said, now is a good time to get that piece of paper because
Mhm.
everybody respect a piece of paper. And when I was training, I remember we was on this big call with about 100 people, and the guy said, "I'm a personal trainer, and I got this certification, that certification, this certification." And I was in my office in the dojo. So one of the people said, "Jeff, do me a favor, say a couple words because you're a sensei, you run your own dojo." So I said, I brought my computer up, said, look at all my certificates. I got certificates too, but that don't mean nothing. If you're not
Right.
passionate, and if you actually don't have a passion to change people's lives, a personal trainer comes a dime a dozen. It comes a dime a dozen. So I really did it to get credibility. And when you say Eric Thomas, everybody's ET. So now it's like, okay, I got the certification. I mention it from time to time, but it's not a selling point for me because when
Right.
you call me on the phone, I'm 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 already who are you? Who's your child? What can I do? Tell me what your child needs. So I got certified, and I guess it's for bragging rights. I'm not Dr. Jeff Hunt like Dr. D. I'm just Jeff Hunt.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah. So
Okay.
that's what I get it.
So two more questions. I know we're almost out of time.
Having fun.
It's a great conversation. So think about this one for a minute. If your students remember one lesson you taught them 20 years from now, what do you, it could be my son, 20 years from now, what would you hope that that was? One lesson that you taught them 20 years later, and they say, this is a lesson I got from Sensei.
Some of the lessons were soft. Some of the lessons was hard. But at the end of the day, there was one element in both lessons. It was love, and I mean it. Um, I had somebody call me a couple years ago, and he said a name, and I knew the name. I knew the name, but I don't remember, darling. People see me, and I've always had a bald head these last couple of years. But when they see the white beard, that's what I mean. But I look the same. But these kids that were like 10, 15, they come to me and they're 30, 40, 35 years old. I don't know. So he calls me on the phone and said I was driving by and I had to shout you out. He left a message. You might not remember me, but I was a child and I was in your dojo and I was stubborn and I defied everything you said. And you and my father was trying to, we were trying our best to get through, but I just wouldn't listen. And I'm just calling you to say thank you. I just got out of prison. I did 7 years in prison, and um, and I thought about you almost every day. And I was like, and when I finally called him on the phone and we had a conversation, and he started getting, down, I said, we're not going to do that. We're going to understand that everybody has a different path. Everybody got to go through different doors and different situations to become them. And I say that to my students. I say that to my adults. I say that to my own children that I'm a product of different. So I can brag about being different. I can brag about being different. And I tell people God is going to do it differently. If you're looking at what everybody else does, you're going to run to a roadblock. God is going to do it different because God did it different for me. I remind my daughter that, my sons, that God is going to stop looking at what these people do and say, if I do it, I do it. I said, just talk to God, communicate with God, and understand that it's going to be different. And I can say that with conviction because
Yeah.
I've had brilliant people say to me, and he's a friend of mine. He said, "You're a fluke."
Hmm.
What do you mean a fluke? And he works for Morgan Stanley. He's brilliant. He's not smart. He's brilliant, right?
Wow.
And he said one day, "You're a fluke. You weren't supposed to have all the success you have. Most people that go to Queensboro, they drop out and they never respond. You went from Queensboro to Baruch College. You went from Baruch College to becoming a police officer. You became a police officer, then you became a sergeant. You went from a sergeant, became a commissioner. You opened up a dojo. The dojo was successful. That doesn't happen to people. That doesn't happen to people like you. And I wasn't offended by what he said. I just smiled and I said, "Grace
Mhm.
and mercy."
That's
Right?
it.
I just, just,
Grace and
just,
mercy.
just grace, grace. Even with my children, if you ask any of my children, why do you have what you have? They'll look you right in the face and say, "Grace and mercy." I said, "Don't you ever
Yes.
ever think you better than anybody because of how you eat, how you live, what you wear, how we drive, how we vacation. If it wasn't but for the grace of God, different,
Yeah. Morning by morning, new mercies we see.
different. So love, I mean, now my lessons have been hard. Remember, I've been doing this for a long time, and the world was different. The world was harder. I was harder. I was involved. They, now it's different because the parents are different. The parents are younger. The parents escape most forms of discipline. It's difficult. COVID was the worst. Dr. D
Yeah.
was the worst because the struggle wasn't mostly the children. The struggle was the messages that the parents gave the children.
Right.
And I just keep doing what I'm doing, and I just pray God continues to change lives. And when people sign up with me, like I don't sign 6 months contracts. I don't do that. I tell them, I said, give me 30 days to see what God does with me to do with your child, and then you can decide if you want to stay after. Like, I'm not interested in 200 people anymore. I'm
Right.
interested. I'm interested in 150 maybe, but I'm interested in good people that want to invest, that see the purpose of what I do. Not,
Right.
I need an after school program. I'm not the right. I'm not the
Right.
right. I'm not the right place for you. You may want to go down the block. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, yeah, I'm good. If I don't have a purpose, if you don't give me a purpose with this child, or if there's not a purpose with you, there's other places you can go play. I can't do it anymore without a purpose. Without a goal, like you do things purpose. If there's not a purpose and a goal, I can't
And
do it.
it's a no. And it's a hard no.
Yeah.
So, Sensei Jeff Hunt, what would be your last words in this podcast for people who are listening, who need encouragement, who are saying, "Wow, I really like what he's saying. I want a community like that," or my child needs some discipline. You seem like a really strong, straightforward person. I feel like I need empowerment. I'm lost, like all the things and the people. So many people come into the dojo with so many different needs at that time. We all have a season in our life. What would be something you would tell them of inspiration or encouragement, and then tell us how we can find you?
Mm.
And I want to preface this by saying you do this every day. So this question that I'm asking you, my time at the dojo as a student, as a parent, you not only ended each class with the regular way of ending each class, you said something different. I don't know if you realize that every single day you gave these words of inspiration, and you can tell they came from the heart because you didn't have to think about them. It just flowed, and it was something different every day.
You know, you were there, and people. My phone rings all the time, and people share and people connect. And I ask a lot of questions, and I see things. And I look for body language, and I've been through so many levels. And you can tell me something, I know that ain't the truth. You, I can say something and see how you respond. People come to me and they say things to me all the time, and I know if one person is dealing with something, somebody else is. And I just look for ways to constantly encourage. And um, everybody needs a coach.
Everyone needs a coach.
Everybody needs a coach. I got emotional on Sabbath when I was in church because they had like a couples ministry, and all of a sudden they said that me and Kim are going to be leading it, and I was like, Kim, you didn't say we were leading. I thought we were just a part of it. And one of my mentors was right there, and I got emotional saying, everybody needs somebody to encourage them.
Yeah.
Um, I've been fortunate to be many things to many people. And if you come and see me, it's going to be the same. I'm going to do everything I can to make you realize who you are, make you realize how important you are, and bless you with some health, bless you with some exercise. Um, that's what I'm. That's what I'm good at. I I I like to think. I like to word it this way: Commissioner Morgan, Kenny Morgan, hired me and fired me in the same sentence
Wow.
because who he was working for, Oliver Pooh folks at the time, Kenny was like, you know Oliver? I said, call Oliver and ask Oliver if Oliver knows me. And Kenny at the time was in charge. And he says, Jeff, you want to come work? You want to come work over here? Because I could put you on my team, blah, 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 pays this, blah, 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 blah. He said, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. He said, nah, bro. He said, nah. He said, what you did with me, because he was in my kickboxing class.
Yeah.
And then he said, what you did with me and what you do on Merritt Boulevard will far outlive anything you could ever do for my agency or any agency you've ever worked for. I said, Kenny, you just hired me and fired me at the
Right.
same time. And he said, dude, you know how Kenny, dude. He says, yo, your purpose is on Merritt Boulevard. That's your legacy. And I've been a lot of places. I know a good amount of people. I've had good positions and I've been blessed with good stuff. But after a while, you know, it was good. It's memories I love seeing people I've seen for the past. But those connections changed. The connections that I have inside the dojo, when a kid comes up to me and says, Sensei, you remember me? No, I don't remember you. You got to break it down to me. And when they break
Right.
it down, it's like, wow, what you doing now? Thank you. Thank you for what you did. Thank you. Thank you for the discipline. Thank you. You know, a little girl walked in. She grown now. Her and her brother. He's a pastor, well established pastor, and she's a doctor. And,
Wow.
and I started talking. I started getting emotional, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go sit over there in the back, and I want y'all to say a couple words because this was a little quiet little girl that I had,
Wow.
and mother gave it to me, and she was so quiet and quaint. Now she's standing in front of everybody as an MD, and she's talking about different things, and I'm like, she was a baby with me.
Mhm. Mhm. And you sold into their lives, and look at the legacy. I'm glad you said legacy that you are leaving with her brother, and with so many other people, my children. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for sowing into their lives, of my boys, into my life, my husband's life. I was able to get Kevin into a kickboxing class a couple of times. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming to his retirement party. That meant a lot for you to be there,
Honor.
at the end of his police career.
It was my honor. Me and Kevin had some beautiful emotional conversations. When Kevin was in the 2-8, I think, and I at that time I was a commissioner, and me and Kevin would have like morning briefs, right? I I specifically remember there was a certain spot on the Van Wyck Expressway that every day I'd call Kevin on this one exit and ride almost all, and we would go back and forth. And Kevin was like, "Yo, Jeff, let me tell you about this. Is bananas." Yeah, I would almost crash the car. He was like, "Yo, I gotta tell you about this. Is bananas." And we would go back and forth and talk about different levels of leadership, and it'd be so interesting. And it was just you never know why God allows connections to happen because yeah, I was on a job. He was on a job. We were cool, but the connection came at the right time, and it was good for me. It was good for him. And as as far as the children, the thank you has to go back to you and your husband because you saw something in me um, through the character developmental years, and you allowed me to be a part of it. that's to me, that's the ultimate honor that you and parents like you giving me a chance to be a part of this child's mindset and thinking and planting things, and I'm thankful, girl. I'm
Yes.
thankful.
So how can we find you? Where can people find Jeff Hunt Traditional, Shotokan Karate, and Kickboxing? Where are you located? What is your email and phone number?
Well, 227-13 Merrick Boulevard, Laurelton, New York, zip code 11413. There you'll find the absolute best karate and kickboxing school in Southeast Queens. You can call me at 718-977-1500. You can Google me. I always tell people, Google me, Jeff Hunt Karate. Read the reviews. Go to Instagram, Jeff Hunt Karate. Look at what I do. The parents will tell you what I do. My reviews, I don't pay. I don't pay my parents to write reviews. Um, but you might want to have a tissue nearby, because
Yes.
my parents are very honest and very emotional with what they write, and I'm here. I'm here for as God wants me to be here.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you for sewing into the lives of our audience. Family, this is Jeff Hunt from Jeff Hunt Shotokan Karate. Thank him for being with us today. Please make sure you go to our website, which is www.drdarlenewilliamsconsulting.com, and download a copy of our free ebook. It just came out today. It's From Broken to Bold: 7 Healing Truths to Reclaim Your Joy. From
Mm.
boldness to bold: 7 healing truths to reclaim your joy. Sensei, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk soon. Thank you for being on the Debrief with Dr. D. Real talk, real leadership, and real strategy, one insight at a time. Take
Always love.
care.
Always love. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining me today on the Debrief with Dr. D. If this episode spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs a word of hope and clarity. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with our social media community. And remember, healing is not weakness, it's wisdom. You don't have to lead on empty. You don't have to rise alone. You were built to lead, to heal, and to thrive from the inside out. Until next time, lead well, heal deep, and walk boldly. This is Dr. D signing off.